Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Abigail and today I'm going to be talking about mental health. For those of you who have watched me for a while know about some of the struggles that I've gone through with mental health. I have addressed it on this channel before and I've generally been pretty open as far as mental health, but I haven't addressed it in a long time. So I thought it would be a good idea to talk a little bit about it and kind of update you guys about where I'm at. So there's a lot to talk about, so let's get into the video. For those of you who don't really know me very well, I have been diagnosed with both anxiety and depression. And how I can best describe it is that it is a roller coaster of emotions for me. There are several different components of anxiety that I kind of have or have experienced. So the main diagnosis is generalized anxiety disorder, which means that I have excessive worry most days about everyday things like health and work and relationships and just everyday tasks. I always feel on edge or anxious. On top of that, I get really tired really easily, especially from work. Being at work makes me anxious most of the day, and that anxiety can really take a lot out of you. I also have difficulty concentrating. It's hard for me to stay on one task for a very long time. Depending on the situation, I can also be pretty easily irritable, and I also have a lot of muscle tension. I've also dealt with panic attacks. They aren't as severe now as they were a while back. I still do get them, but just not to the extreme that they were. And sometimes they are triggered by something and sometimes they are very random. I've had situations where my heart will just suddenly start beating really fast and really hard, and nothing has happened, and it starts beating so hard that it hurts, and that launches me into a panic attack thinking that, oh my god, I'm having a heart attack or I'm gonna die or something. I also have a lot of phobias that can trigger panic attacks, and I know I've addressed some of these phobias recently. I think I answered this question actually in a Q&A. I do have a handful of phobias. So one of them is being stuck in an elevator. I completely avoid taking the elevator if at all possible. I always take the stairs. I have a phobia of thunder and lightning, and that's not as bad anymore. I can pretty much deal with thunder and lightning as long as I'm inside. I have a phobia of knives and sharp objects, which Dan has been working with me on being able to use knives, so I have greatly improved with that. And I also have a fear of the dryer. Yes, the dryer machine. And I think I addressed about this, but the fear kind of stems from that it could cause a fire. So it's more of the fact that it's something that could cause a fire. And fire is like one of my biggest phobias. I also have a lot of social anxiety, and I also have some separation anxiety. So I have a lot of anxiety. On top of all the anxiety, I also have depression. I have chronic depression. It kind of ranges from like mild to moderate at this point. I have had it worse in the past, but as of right now, I would kind of classify it as a mild to moderate depression. I have really bad low self-esteem about myself, and I will frequently have thoughts of hopelessness, and I'll have thoughts where I just hate myself. I think the biggest thing for me right now is the loss of interest in things that I used to enjoy. I very frequently will get really, really bored, but at the same time, I won't feel like doing anything at all. But I'm bored, I want to do something, but I don't want to do anything. So it's this clash of things, and it's kind of like a combination of anxiety and depression, wanting to do something, but not wanting to do anything. It's been a constant battle. Before I started birth control, I also had really, really bad PMS symptoms. So, right before my period, my moods would just be off the wall, and I would not understand why. I was so all over the place, and it was very abnormal, and I wouldn't understand why I was feeling this way until I realized that it was like 2 or 3 days before my period, and it always happened 2 or 3 days before my period. And I was like, oh, that makes sense now. When I started birth control, it seemed to alleviate pretty much all of my PMS symptoms, or at least muted it so it wasn't as bad to deal with. On top of that, my depression tends to get worse in the fall and winter, but I seem to get better in the spring and summer. And I live in Maine, so it is very common for people to have seasonal depression when it's getting colder and the days are shorter. I am definitely one of those people that has seasonal depression on top of regular depression. Yes, it's a lot, but I have taken some steps to help myself. One of the biggest steps I took was when I started medication. I started medication in December of 2018. I'm pretty sure I made a video about it, and it was mainly for anxiety, and it was an overnight life changer. Literally, I did have some bad side effects at first, but they went away within a week. But it was like night and day. It really helped me a lot, and it allowed me to be able to start learning other coping mechanisms because I was already in a much more calmer state. One thing I did notice, though, is that my depression seemed to be worse at night. I don't know if that is because of the medication or just because of something else. Lately, I've been feeling okay, so I don't really know. But another thing that I've noticed is that I feel like over time, the medication has kind of become less and less effective. If it can do that, I don't know if it can do that. I just feel like a lot of my anxiety had been coming back over time. Not back to where I was before, but I just noticed a lot of the things that I wasn't bothered by while taking the medication are starting to bother me again. So I am planning on talking to my doctor about that, maybe seeing if either I need a higher dose or if I need to switch medications. Like I mentioned, medication was kind of the thing I needed in order to be able to learn other coping mechanisms. I did go to therapy for a while, and I learned some coping mechanisms and addressed what really caused my really bad anxiety and depression. To put it all in a nutshell without getting too personal, there was a lot of negativity in my past, especially in my college years. I can 100% say that my years in college were the worst years of my life. And I am just going to leave it at that, because then we start to dive into some personal stuff that I do want to keep private. There are certain aspects in my life that I do wish to keep private, and I hope you all can respect that. It's starting to get dark, so I am going to try to finish up this video before it gets too dark. I'm putting my computer in front of me for a little bit of extra lighting. I don't know if this helps or not, but we will keep going. So the biggest mindset change that I made in my 20s was that I needed to put myself first and take care of myself. I cared way too much about what other people thought of me, and I was always judging myself and picking myself apart over every little mistake that I made. It was just not a healthy mindset for me to be in, and I learned that I really needed to be more gentle with myself. I also taught myself that it was okay to have some lazy days every once in a while. Honestly, I had this mindset that I needed to be busy all the time. Downtime scared me because that's when I would get lost in my head and I would be spiraling and having all these negative thoughts. So I coped with that by staying busy and working all the time, and that was just not healthy. I was getting so burnt out so quickly. Okay, it's getting way too dark, so I'm gonna see if turning on the light will do anything. Okay, we have the lights on, so that way you can see me. It is literally 4:30 and it is almost dark out. This is why I don't like this time of year. So back to what I was talking about before. I went to therapy and worked a lot on self-talk. I would take any sort of negative thought that I had and challenge that thought with a question, or trying to figure out if there was any evidence to that thought. Challenging self-talk works for me for a good portion of the time, but like all coping mechanisms, it doesn't always work all the time. I learned that you need to learn several different coping mechanisms because one might work in one situation but won't work in another, or it may work one time in a certain situation, but the next time a situation happens, it may not work again. Working on self-talk really worked for me, but it may not work for everybody. Just like other coping techniques that I've learned don't really work for me. For example, meditation. I wanted so bad to like doing meditation, and it just doesn't work for me. It actually makes me more anxious when I take a few minutes and sit down and meditate. So it's actually doing the opposite for me. And I beat myself up about it because I was thinking if I didn't learn how to meditate, then I would never get better. But I used my self-talk strategies and challenged that thought. Self-care is such a big spectrum of things that some things will work for certain people and other things might not. But other things might work for a different set of people. And not everything is going to work all the time. So if you are struggling with mental illness and you are learning some self-care techniques and some just aren't working for you, don't beat yourself up about it. We are so critical on ourselves about everything, and we just need to learn to let that go. I think I am going to stop here with this conversation. I've been talking for a very long time, and I don't know if I even made any sense at all. I felt like this video was kind of a jumbled mess, but my mind is a jumbled mess anyway. I really struggle with taking things that are in my head and verbalizing them because I can never fully say what I want to say. It always comes out differently than what I picture in my head. Feel free to comment down below. I love chatting with you guys in the comments. Let me know if you can relate to anything that I've said, or if there are some self-care techniques that you've tried and that work for you, or strategies that you've tried that don't work for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye!